the friend who reads ahead. We started the book together, like we always did. Same day, same pace, a couple chapters each night. By the third chapter, he was already hinting at things I hadn't read. Not smugly, just quiet warnings. Don't get attached to that guy, or that key isn't the real one. Every time, he was right. I asked how. He said, maybe I dreamt it. Always the same answer. I thought it was a joke, until his dreams started matching the book exactly. One night, a major character died out of nowhere. I was shocked. He wasn't. I saw it last night, he said softly. I hoped it was wrong. I tried to get ahead, reading during lunch breaks, in line at the store, but he still knew. He called his dreams weather reports. Sometimes harmless, sometimes unsettling. Then one morning he sent me a message. Don't read tonight. I called him. Bad dream? A pause. The next chapter. It says you die. I laughed it off. It's just a book. Please, he said. Don't read. I promised. I still read. Only a page and a half, but the sentences felt heavier than they should, like the air before a storm. I stopped. The next morning, the ribbon bookmark had changed. Same red ribbon, but now my full name was printed on it. And a date, not far away. I called him. You were right. I didn't want to be. What do I do? Maybe don't read for a while. I put the book in a drawer, ribbon visible. Later, I checked. It was still printed. On the bus, he messaged, New dream. Yours had a crease. Creases mean it can fold another way. What does that mean? I asked. We choose a different sentence. Meet me after work. That night, we sat in my living room with a book between us. We didn't open it. We talked about the weather, an old teacher, the smell after rain. Hours passed. When he finally lifted the cover, the ribbon slid free. Blank on both sides. We didn't read that night. Or the next. For now, the next chapter can wait. The Tenant Before You. When I first moved into the apartment, the property manager gave me the usual welcome speech. Trash pickup days, the laundry room code, how to buzz guests in. She was almost out the door when she stopped, looked at me like she'd just remembered something important, and said, If you get any mail for the previous tenant, don't open it. Her tone was casual, but there was something clipped at the end of her sentence. Like she wasn't just reciting a policy, more like she'd had to say it before, and it hadn't been taken seriously. I didn't think much of it. In every place I've rented, I've gotten mail for the last guy. It's annoying, but you toss it or write, return to sender, and move on. A week later, the first envelope arrived. Plain white, my unit number typed in the corner, the name printed above it, not even close to mine. But what caught my eye was the handwriting across the front. Red ink, thin and sharp, like it had been written with a fine brush pen. We still haven't heard back. I tossed it on the counter. By the end of the month, there were 3 more. All with the same typed address, all with that same line in red, getting sloppier each time. Like whoever wrote it was running out of patience. Here's the thing. I hadn't sent them anything. I hadn't replied to anyone. One night, after taking the trash out to the bins behind the building, I lifted the lid and froze. On top of the pile was a half-crumpled envelope with my name on it. The return address matched one of the letters meant for the previous tenant. Inside was a single sheet of paper, creased from being folded twice. My handwriting. Or at least, it looked exactly like mine. Same slant, same loops on the lowercase g. Same faint hesitation before a capital T. The letter was short. Thank you for your patience. I'll be ready to come back soon. No signature, just my name printed in block letters. I stared at it under the kitchen light until the bulb felt hot above me. I checked my desk drawers, my notebooks, every scrap of paper in the apartment. Nothing matched the stationery. The pen used wasn't one I owned. The next morning, another envelope was in my mailbox. The red ink was fresh enough to gleam. We received your reply, awaiting your arrival at Greystone Court. I'd never lived at a place called Greystone Court. I'd never even heard of it. Curiosity won. I searched the name. There was an address, but no website, no listing, no reviews. Street view loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, until the image cleared. A squat brick building with boarded-up windows. A weathered sign by the door read, "Vacant, do not enter." And in the shadow near the mailbox, blurred just enough to look accidental, was a figure holding an envelope. Their hand was pale, with a faint scar along the knuckle of the index finger. The exact same scar I have. I slammed the laptop shut. Over the next week, the mail kept coming. More envelopes, all for the previous tenant's name, all marked in red with variations on the same message. Your presence is requested. You are expected soon. No more delays. Then one night, while putting out recycling, I saw movement in the reflection of the lobby's glass door. Someone slipping into the stairwell. I called out, but the echo of my voice came back empty. In the morning, a letter was slipped under my door. Not in the mailbox, inside my apartment. My name on the front. Inside, just one line. We've kept the room exactly as you left it. It was signed with the previous tenant's name. That was 3 nights ago. I haven't slept much since. Every time I close my eyes, I picture the shadow at the mailbox. I think about how the letters seem to know my handwriting before I'd ever touched them. I think about Greystone Court, whether it's waiting for me or whether I've already been there. And each morning, there's another envelope. The one today didn't have red ink, just my name. Inside, nothing but a key. Last shift at the warehouse. It was my last day at the warehouse, a job I'd been meaning to quit for months. The pay wasn't awful, but the hours dragged, and the silence had a way of pressing down on you if you were working alone. That afternoon, I was the only one on the schedule. End of the week, end of my time there. The place was a cavern of metal and concrete. High racks stacked with pallets, forklifts parked in rigid rows, a faint chemical smell in the air. The overhead lights buzzed just loud enough to make you notice the quiet underneath. I clocked in at the front office, scanned my badge, and stepped onto the main floor. No music, no chatter. Just the hollow echo of my boots on the polished concrete. For the first few hours, I did the usual end-of-shift cleanup, breaking down boxes, stacking pallets, sweeping the aisles. The warehouse was a labyrinth, rows and rows of shelves creating blind corners. You could walk 5 minutes in one direction and feel like you'd gone somewhere else entirely. I was taping up a bundle of flattened cardboard when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from somewhere deep in the shelving behind me. I froze, listening. They weren't the shuffling of an animal or the random echo of machinery cooling. These were steady, human steps. "Hello." My voice bounced down the aisle and came back empty. I told myself it was probably my manager checking in, or maybe a driver coming in early with a delivery. But the steps didn't come closer. They moved sideways, parallel to where I stood, weaving in and out of the racks as if whoever it was knew exactly how to avoid being seen. Curiosity won out over caution. I walked toward the security station at the front, my own footsteps sounding too loud in my ears. The cameras were old, grainy black and white feeds that flickered between angles, with a half-second delay. I cycled through them, until one view caught my breath. In the far aisle, a figure moved slowly between the shelves. Too far away to make out their face, but their silhouette was sharp. Tall, shoulders slightly hunched, head tilted forward. They moved like they belonged there. Not sneaking, not rushing, just existing in the space. I checked the roster on the computer. No one else was scheduled. I picked up the phone and called the manager's line. No answer. Back on the screen, the system tagged the figure automatically. In the corner, white text appeared. Unknown. No badge detected. The figure kept walking, turning down an aisle out of frame. I flipped to the next camera, trying to catch them. But by the time the feed switched, the aisle was empty. For a moment, I considered calling the police, but something about the way they moved stopped me. They weren't acting like a thief. There was no searching, no grabbing. Just a calm, steady walk, as if they were following a path only they could see. Eventually, they vanished from every camera. I told myself to get back to work, but my hands kept tightening on the flashlight hanging by the desk. I started down the aisles, the beam cutting through dust motes in the air. Every corner was empty, every row quiet. By the time I got back to the front, the feed was clear. Nothing moved except me. I finished the shift uneasy, glancing over my shoulder every few minutes. When I finally shut down the lights and locked up, the air outside felt too fresh, like stepping out of a movie theater after hours in the dark. The next morning I came in to hand over my badge and pick up my final paycheck. The receptionist looked puzzled when I slid the badge across the counter. "We didn't have you on the schedule yesterday," she said. "Yeah, you did. 3 to 10, my last shift." She swiveled the monitor toward me. The scheduling software showed an empty space where my name should have been. No one had been assigned to that day. My time card history had a gap, as if yesterday had never happened. "Must be a glitch," I said. She shook her head. "Our system doesn't glitch like that. If there's no record, it means you weren't here." I asked if she could check the security footage. She pulled it up, and there I was, clear as day, walking through the security gate at 3:02 p.m., badge in hand. I watched the timeline scrub forward. Hours of footage passed. I never walked out. There were no clips of me leaving. No figure moving between the racks. Just me entering and then nothing. The footage didn't even show me working. One moment I was walking in, the next the feed was static. When it came back, the timestamp was 10:01 p.m. and the door was still closed. "You sure this is from yesterday?" I asked. She nodded. "Then where's the rest of it?" She didn't answer. I left with a paycheck in my pocket, the paper suddenly feeling heavier than it should. That night, I kept replaying the image of the figure walking the aisles, the way the system labeled them. Unknown, and how calm they'd seemed. And I can't shake the thought that maybe on some other screen, somewhere else, the footage never stopped. It just kept rolling, following both of us deeper into the warehouse, past the shelves, past the cameras, until we reached wherever it is you go when you're no longer on the schedule.